Well, hello again and welcome back. And today I wasn't really expecting to have to do anything to this car really until the better weather has arrived. It's now the end of February and sort of spring is sort of in the air. Odd days, you know what it's like in the UK, odd days. You get that day where you just think, oh, there's that nice feel, fresh feel in the air. Unfortunately today is not one of those days. It's a bit blustery and a bit blowy and it's a bit rainy, but it's not pouring with rain, so I'm not too worried. And I think I said in the first episode I already knew that I got brake trouble with this before we even start really, but the brake trouble has sort of escalated a little bit in the fact that it actually leaks, and one of the brakes was binding so badly that I couldn't drive it. So I rolled it off the trailer. Pretty much as soon as I got this car home I realised I had a problem. It went on the trailer perfectly fine when I loaded it. I think possibly I yanked on the handbrake pretty tight to make sure it wouldn't roll on the trailer at all, and it's got every chance of staying on the trailer. And the left rear brake is binding so badly that it's basically stuck on. But so that needed freeing off. Now obviously I can take the wheel drum off of that and just drive it around here just so I can move it. So I managed to get it into the place that it's in now. When I got it off the trailer I realised that there was a pool of fluid in the vicinity of where the right hand brake, rear brake, was standing while it was on the trailer, and sure enough it wasn't gear oil, it was brake fluid. And I checked the master cylinder and the master cylinder was virtually empty. There was a lot of fluid that's leaked out. So clearly from standing this car's had a few issues with brakes and I've got to fix them. You can probably see there that brake assembly it's been leaking for some time because the shoes are utterly caked and covered in brake lining material and fluid, which makes a horrible greasy mess. So I've got new brake shoes and I've got new slave cylinders for both sides, because I think that the slave cylinder on the left hand side is seized and it's not allowing the brakes to return. It might be the handbrake, in which case I won't need to use the other cylinder. But having said that, while I'm here and I've got them, I may as well change the cylinders. Then I know I've got new cylinders, new seals, new fluid, new shoes, job done. So let's get on with the job and get these brake shoes off. And if you watch my channel you know that I hate brakes, so I'm not going to enjoy the next couple of hours particularly, only when it's finished. Thankfully these are standard sort of brakes, self-adjusting but mechanical, old school, no electronic park brake malarkey, none of that rubbish. Trouble is I've got to remember how to do them. So first off, take off the little clip at the bottom, otherwise the brake's going nowhere. Little pin comes out and you just ease the bottom shoes off of the mounting, and then that allows the top one to come free. Keep the springs in all the right places, because you can come a cropper if you're not careful, and also make sure you know which way round the brakes went, otherwise you could be there all day trying to figure it out for yourself. Same clip at the top. Sometimes on cars this age they are all horrible and rusty and nasty. This side so far it's looking pretty clean and tidy, and on this side we've got there's the spring. We've got a cutout with a little piece there which you do not want to lose. That is the, if you can see that there, that is the clip for the handbrake. It's like a little platform that sits onto the lever, so don't lose that. That's easily dropped and lost. So the next job is going to be get some cleaner onto this. I'm going to scrub it and get all that dirt, horrible mess and muck off before I disconnect anything. Get all that brake dust out the way, all that old fluid, get that all nice and clean on the back plate, and get ready to hopefully get that cylinder out. It's wonderful what a bit of geyser If you know what Geyser is, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, it's a water soluble degreaser, and just washed it off with some boiling water. That heats up the back plate, which means it then dries out pretty quickly, but I'm going to go over it with a little bit of brake cleaner just to get any greasy residue off, just to be sure. It's not badly corroded, so I'm not going to bother painting. I've done the rear brake drums already. This one was obviously covered in brake fluid and dust and dirt and grease and muck, so I've got rid of all of that, and I've painted the brake shoes as brake drums as well, so they're ready to go on. I've done that already off camera. Right, now we're ready to tackle the brake pipes. I haven't actually got a securing screw because these are floating slave cylinders. They float up and down because they're single piston. So when the piston pushes out on one side, it pushes the whole body downwards and acts on the bottom shoe. So we haven't got that worry, so that's one less bolt to get out, but we do have the problem of getting the pipes off the back, because as expected they are steel pipes, steel union nuts, and obviously that's an aluminium cylinder. Wish me luck. Which one shall I pick first? Let's try the top one. The top one, that one will probably come undone. Yep. Do it back up again a little way. The bottom one's got grease all around it. That doesn't mean anything, of course. Oh dear, that's going nowhere. That's going nowhere. I really don't want to round off the nut. I really don't want to do that. Right, so what am I going to do? It will do up a little bit maybe. No, it won't. Okay. Right, well, there's a rubber boot here, or a plastic boot or something, which goes around the back of the cylinder to stop water and dirt getting inside the brake plate. If I try and heat that cylinder up, that's going to damage that. I'll see if I get my little gas soldering iron with a little flame, maybe to heat it up enough. You probably can't see the flame, but you certainly hear it. Got to go real steady with this. Really are a scourge, these steel pipes, steel nuts into aluminium bodies. Really bad idea, but it's how it was. The only thing I don't want to damage, well, the nut on the pipe, but also don't want to damage the boot at the back. I'm not worried about the cylinder. It'd be nice if I don't damage the cylinder, because at some point I expect these things won't be available. So if you've got a spare one and you can reseal it later in the future, then no, that's not having that. Oh dear, I don't have a pipe spanner with me. No. The other thing that I could do is take off the union just here, because this is a single line system, so we've got a pipe coming in from the car, front of the car, into this cylinder on the right hand side, and then it goes across the axle to the other side. There's only one bleed nipple at the back. I could take this off of here. I know I can undo the top one and get that out and pull the whole cylinder with the pipe out through the back plate and the handbrake mechanism and all of that, and then do it on the bench and get that pipe out without damaging it too much. And that means I've got the rubber boot out of the way, and I'm not going to burn that with a bit of heat. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'll get this undone at this side, that union just there, if I can get on it, that one there, and there's a little short pipe that bends round and then comes back into the cylinder there. So I think I'm going to try that before I do any more damage. Okay, so yeah, I've had to disconnect that little short pipe that comes from the front of the car on that union there, so I can now heat that up. There's the rubber boot that I was talking about, that basically seals the back plate where the cylinder comes through, and also the handbrake lever. Handbrake lever is there, and then this is secured on the back of the back plate with 2 U-clips. One comes down from above, that's that little one, and one comes up from below, and it looks like they lock together. So there's some, if I can just find it, there's some little indents here, and I think that comes up from above, and then they click together like that, and that sits in those holes there at the top. If you can see the holes at the top of that U, they correspond with the little indents on the top spring. So that's what holds it in, and it's quite fiddly getting it out. So I haven't filmed that because that's a pain. I'm going to clean all this lot up, try and get that pipe out now, give that some heat, some serious heat. Just better double check before we do anything else that the cylinder I've got is the right cylinder. And so far, looking at it, I'm not going to take it out of the packet until I'm sure. So far it looks pretty much as it should. The only bit that's different is the adjuster at the bottom. This is a handbrake adjuster, or the brake shoe adjuster for the handbrakes. It's automatic adjuster. That basically sits in a little indent in the bottom of the slave cylinder and allows the brakes to be adjusted every time you put your handbrake on. So that looks pretty much as it should, so I'm happy with that. The brand that I've got, a Borg & Beck. Now back in my day, back in the 70s, 80s, Borg & Beck was a very, very good name. These days, anyone can put a name on anything. They can call it Borg & Beck. Does it mean it's quality anymore? Anyone's guess. It's the same with Lucas ignition parts. I think most of it's made in China. It might have Lucas written on it. Does it mean it's real proper Lucas? And even if it is it made to the old standards that was, you know, that Lucas adhered to? Same with Borg & Beck, same with Girling, same with anything. You just never can tell these days. So we have to go with what we've got. They weren't very expensive. I think it was about 30 quid for the pair, and the brake shoes were about 50 quid for the pair, or the 2 pair I should say. Right, let's get this lot cleaned up and I'll come back to you in a bit. Right, we've got the pipe off. I'll explain what I did. I didn't film it because it was being a bit of a pain. Basically got that in the vise, heated it up, heated the body up, and managed to unscrew the union nut. But then of course the union nut was then seized up to the pipe, which didn't help, so that wasn't helping. Luckily it's not too badly mullered, although it's not the best. You can probably see the hexagon is not in the best shape. I had to use a pair of grips to grip it hard enough to undo it. Anyhow, it's done, it's off, and I'm going to put that on. At some point that is going to need a new pipe. When I do more work on this, then I will put new pipes on. I might even investigate putting flexes on that if I can do it. Stainless steel ones or something like that, or even copper pipes, because I absolutely hate steel brake pipes. They really are the scourge of the devil, and that's how they always used to be, of course. Before I ever do anything with brakes, I make sure that I've got the right bits. So before even taking the brake shoes out of the packet, I'll make sure that we have got the right holes, the right slots, the right shaped holes in the right places. They're the right width. This is a 3-litre car, and the 3000 GT had wider brake shoes on the back end than the 1600 or the 1300 GT. So if you're going to buy a set, make sure you buy the right ones. I got these off eBay from a guy down in Kent who sells these parts, and his website is absolutely crystal clear that you must make sure you've got the right ones. And only buy what it says on the tin. If it doesn't say 3-litre GT, don't buy them unless you can 100% verify that they are the right size, right width, etc, etc. These look correct. I know they're the right width because I've checked that already. They're slightly wider, as I say, than the 1600 cars, and I can see just by looking through the packet, luckily it's a clear packet, that everything's where it should be. So I'm happy to crack on and get them out. And I don't really want to return them because I don't want to come back and do this job again. So it looks good. The observant amongst you might notice that I've left the pipe coming from the front of the car. I've left that open. Well, I've plugged it to stop any dirt getting in, but it's loose plugged, and I'm allowing the brake fluid to drain out from this master cylinder and basically flow out so I can get rid of the old brake fluid that's in there, because clearly I haven't got any idea how old that brake fluid is. So I've made a decision to sort of just keep an eye on it and top it up occasionally while I'm doing the job. And I've already topped it up twice, so that's how much it's leaking. So that is intentional, but I'm not letting it drain on the ground. As you can see, it's going into a tray, and the tray will go into the waste fluids, ready to go to the recycler stroke tidy tip stroke wherever you put your waste fluids. Whatever you do, don't put them down the drain. So yeah, so let's get it built up. Hopefully I can be able to film it without getting too in the way of the camera. Let's see how I get on. I don't like lathering everything in grease on brakes, because all that grease does is dry out over time. Anti-seize is the best use stuff to use. I've got some aluminium coloured stuff here at the minute. I use copper seize as well. So yeah, if you use grease, then you might be back in there before you know it, trying to get the thing to unseize. I've got to figure out how I got this out. I think I did it that way. That's the way. Yeah, she's in. Oh, hang on a minute. It is fiddly because there's a rivet there on the lever, the handbrake lever. There's a rivet which has got to go underneath something like that. Yeah, it will go. See, the Ford engineers did know what they were doing. Yeah. Right, these clips are tricky. Now I think it actually fits that way round. It came off, it's slightly bent, like a slight banana shape. I think that's the way it comes. That's the way it came off. Yeah, there we go. It's in. That's better. It wouldn't go the other way. Right, so that stops that from dropping out. It's important to get that clip located correctly, the two U-clips together, one above, one below, and then the little indents to go into the holes of the bigger U-clip, so that the whole thing can slide up and down. And give it some copper slip. That's better. The whole thing can slide up and down like that without that clip coming off. Once the handbrake cable is up and done, that should stay there. Don't forget the boot. Get that one in first because it's the hardest one, the bottom one, into the cylinder. Oh dear, oh Lord. Did I mention I don't like brakes? They are fiddly, they are awkward, they're messy. But essential. 100% essential. You want to make sure your brakes work, that's for sure. Right, we're in. Let's do that one up quick. Where's my spanner gone? There we go. Right. Now don't go too tight with these, of course. Just make sure they're ton up, but don't over tighten. Give that some of that on there, just to help that on the way. Right, good. Top one. And then we can spray it around with some WD-40 to get this brake fluid off of everything else. Actually, brake cleaner would be a better bet, wouldn't it, you idiot? I don't intend using this car in bad weather, so I'm not too worried about salt and corrosion necessarily. But I will paint this with a little bit of inhibitor just to keep the worst off. I mean, I'm going to change that pipe at some point because that's not in great shape. I don't want that failing on me. Right, so that's all in, and it looks like it stopped dripping, which also means that we have sealed it. So first things first, get the right shoe. The top shoe has got a square. The top shoe has got a square in the end of its arc, end of its frame, into which this little flat plate fits, and that gives surface area for the handbrake lever. As I said already, it's quite fiddly, so we fiddle that in there. Now, I've done this many times and got this wrong. Make sure you get the right hole. We've got 3 holes here, and it's this hole here that we want to put this spring, and it's sort of like a reverse hook. So we put it in and hook it round so that it is now in, and before that little plate drops out, and in like that. That only took 4 goes, didn't it? Oh god, I hate brakes. Jesus. Right, let's put this clip in the back just to retain it before it goes anywhere else, drops out. You can put these on with your fingers, or you can put them on with pliers. They're not very strong. All it does is just locates the brake shoe, stops it from drifting around too much. It's got to be able to move, obviously, but you don't want it moving so that it can flop around and jam up. Okay, so we've got to put the little adjuster screw in. That's this piece here. That goes up inside there, but it won't stay in there. It's going to drop out. So what we've got to do first is put the brake shoe on. Again, we've got 2 holes, this one and this one. Make sure you get the right 2. It's going to be the closest one here, I'm fairly certain. Having said that, no, yes, it's going to be that closest one. Yes, it's going to be the closest one because that other one is too far back. So this one here. Now the best thing is you've got to try and hook this in the best way possible, because it's like a reverse hook, as I say. You've got to get that in there so that there's no way of getting that on any other way. And once the shoes are in, there's no way of getting that spring in or out. It's such a contortion to get it off that you've got to get it on there before you put the shoe up. The one at the back is different, of course. That's quite easy. So that one's in at the back, and now we've got to get in. We've got to use the lever to get the adjuster screw into the hole there. There should be enough movement to be able to get that and then the next problem is holding that up while you then try and manoeuvre that in there. And that is it done. One last little thing to do is to put in the retaining clip at the bottom, little spring, push the peg through, and then locate the plate on top of the peg. It's there somewhere. I know you are. Come on. Twist it round half a turn and it's in. There we go. So there we are. So there we go. We've got it in where it needs to be. Spring is where it should be. Spring is in the right holes here, the right hole at the top. We've got the handbrake lever with the plate. We've got the lever arm here. When the handbrake is put on, basically what's happening is as the brakes lift up and down, the lever at the bottom contacts on that little star wheel, that little ratchet wheel, and it moves and turns it, and it then screws out the screw, which then pushes down the brake shoe at the bottom, and then that adjusts it all up. And that's how the adjustment's done. And it looks like it's all working, which is really good. Now always start with this adjusted right back, so it's screwed fully in, and the little dog that connects onto the brake shoe is fully right up. Make sure that your brake shoes are centralised, otherwise this is never going to go on. And I've always have trouble with aftermarket brake parts, and you find that sometimes they're not correct specification and they won't go on as you expect them to, because the thickness of the brake shoes is too thick, and even with them adjusted right back you can't do that. It binds immediately. Now I can hear a bit of binding. There's not much else I can do right now. I'm going to leave that as it is, because we need to do the other side and bleed the brakes before we can adjust them, because we need to centralise the brakes before we adjust them, and the only way to centralise the brakes is put your foot on the brake pedal to get them to sit and centralise correctly inside the drum. We can't do that with the drum off, and we can't do that without any brake fluid in the system. So there's going to be air in the system. I haven't drained the system fully and it's not empty, but there's air in it, so I've got to do the other side first and bleed it before I can do anything else. So that's where I'm at. Let's get on with the other side. Okay, so that spring clip and the U-clip, that's a bit of a pain in the neck to get in. This side was different to the other side. The other side, the main clip, the actual keeper plate itself, the stronger part, was coming up from underneath, going up that way, and the spring clip was coming in from above, probably because it's easier to get in that way. This side was the other way around, so the strong clip was at the top and came in from the top, and the spring clip then comes in underneath on top of it, up from underneath onto top of it, and it's got a bend in the clip so that it sort of springs against the cylinder and holds it tight, and then the little indents go into the holes of the U-clip. Now I suppose logic dictates that if that clip was to fall out, then that with it in this way around, the strong U-clip, the actual retainer itself, the bit that's doing the work, is going to stay in because of gravity, and it's not going to want to pop out easily. So although it's fiddly to get in, this probably makes more sense for it to come in from above, and then the U-clip to come in underneath, the spring clip to retain it to come in underneath.
so that the main clip comes from above, and the retaining spring clip comes in from underneath. If that drops out, this U-clip can't really go anywhere. It just becomes a little looser, that's all, or a little more loose. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm hoping that's correct, so I will actually address on the other side and change that, because I don't want that dropping out anytime soon. So that's all in there as it should be. Just put on the rubber boot. I've done it a slightly different way around this time, but that is flexible enough to get that in there. And then over the top of that, over the top of this bleed nipple, and then in onto the back there, and push it right hard down so that it keeps as much dirt and muck out as possible. And that can still rotate, so we're happy with that. There we go. Right, hand brake on, brake shoes in. Just a little R-clip that holds the pin in, nice and easy, no split pins, nothing horrid like that. I don't generally use grease on brake parts, on the actual brakes themselves, because the grease will just dry out from the heat of the brakes. But on external parts like this cable and this clevis pin, I'm going to grease them so that they don't seize up. The grease won't dry out quite as quickly.
Right, okay, so we've now got both sides done, got both drums on, done nothing else other than just a cursory adjustment for the moment, but I'm going to break off the bleed nipple at the back and just let that drain the fluid through. Now in theory, doing that by gravity should possibly mean that any air that is in the back here is going to push through all the way from the right hand side union across the axle and into this cylinder and then out of the bleed nipple on this side. We've only got the one bleed nipple on the back. So I'm just going to crack this off, and hopefully at some point in a few seconds or a few minutes we will see some fluid coming down through that pipe. And here it comes, and currently there looks like there's no air bubbles in that whatsoever. Now as I'm on my own, it's going to be very difficult to bleed the system in the normal manner with somebody on a on the bleed nipple at this end and someone pumping at the other end. I do have a one-man bleed valve kit, just a pipe with a one-way valve in it. But I'm going to try this way first, and this is basically just draining by gravity. It's just pushing through the fluid from the front, and by now of course, with it having done both sides, I've got both cylinders clean fluid. There's clean fluid gone into the master cylinder reservoir at the front, and it's just about to drop out down. If we follow it down, there you go, it's going to drop out down the end there. There it comes, and here it comes. So I'm just going to let that drain through, and I'm just going to top it up. We've got no air bubbles coming through. I am confident that that is empty of air, but there's only one way to find out. Now the handbrake's on, and you can see the handbrake is very, very high. So I've basically locked the drums on by putting the handbrake up. That centralised the shoes a little bit, but all that's really trying to do is just trying to lock the brakes on the out position, as in the fully on position. And I'm just going to push the pedal a little bit and see what happens. You're going to get some travel on the pedal because we've got to take up the pistons have got to extend themselves before they come out to the brake shoes themselves inside. So I'm probably just going to go steady with it. And there we go, and we've got a really lovely firm pedal actually. That is really good. I'm happy with that. Oh yeah, fantastic. Good, brilliant. Right, now it's just a case of adjusting the brake shoes. If I let off the handbrake, they should be centralised now. It's a tiny bit of rubbing, but not bad. So what I can do now is just adjust those shoes up manually so that we can get them much closer to where they need to be. What we want to do really is just extend the shoes a little way, a few turns, and it's one of those suck it and see jobs. So that won't go back on now, so now we've got to go back a bit, which means we've got to just release the catch, the lever, and just go back a few little turns. Not quite enough, I think I've gone a bit too far. Oh, that's better. And what you're looking for is just a little bit of binding, not much. It's got to still got to turn without any friction. You're just looking for a tiny bit of binding. You've also got to bear in mind that there may be a lip on this edge here which you're trying to get over. These are good, there's no lip, so what I'm getting is just enough. It's one of these, you just got to try it. You just got to try it. If it's too much, you'll know. I think that's good. Let's try the other side. Yeah, we're good. A fair amount of trouble on the handbrake lever, but these are auto adjusters, so what we've got to do is we've got to let them bed in a bit. When I take it to the MOT test brake tester, put it on the brake tester, we'll have a proper go at it then, and if they need to be adjusted, that's what we'll do. But I'm happy with that. I think we're good. Okay, so what I have noticed is that I've got quite a fair bit of travel on the handbrake lever itself, and I've got the brake shoes done up as far as I dare. I don't want to overdo it because I don't want them to bind and overheat, or overheat and then bind. So I've still got a fair amount of travel on the handbrake lever itself. So what I'm going to do is adjust the cable. Now how this works is we've got one cable coming from the lever in the front up to the back of the diff here onto this lever here, pivoted at this bracket, and then there's a roller with a single cable which goes both sides and connects onto the brakes themselves. So it's sort of like an equalizing lever, equalizing system. So if one is more worn than the other, it compensates. So and we can basically tighten this screw here to shorten this cable. I'm not going to shorten these anymore because it will start to pull the brakes on, I think. So I'm going to pull this one up a little bit just to take a little bit more play up in this cable here. This is likely the one that's stretched, so I'm going to go with that one. So we've got two nuts, lock nut and an adjusting nut. Lock nuts come free, which is good, and then we can just pull this nut here. Might have to hold the cable a bit. and that'll take up the slack in the handbrake lever, but eventually it will start pulling on this cable here, so we've got to be aware of that, so that's not starting to actually pull the brakes on. But the spring is doing its job. There's a spring here which is pulling this compensating lever back on its seat, so hopefully it will just basically tension the front cable. The cables that go to the brakes have got their own adjustment on the clevises at each end, so we'll see what we get. I'll be aiming for something like 3 or 4 clicks on the handbrake lever, I think. So I've gone a fair old way. I've gone, what, ½ inch maybe? Yeah, still the compensator's still on its seat with the spring, so that's good. Let's try the handle again. Oh, that's better. I'll be lag when I get my ramp. Everything's so awkward on the floor. That's it. There we go. Excellent. There we go. Yep, we're in. Right, we're on to the front now. So what I'm going to do at the front is nothing really special. So you can see that it's been standing. So I've got a bit of rust on the disc there, but it's only surface rust. Everything's free and moving, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to run some clean fluid through these pipes here. Clearly the back one's been done already. Just by gravity, exactly what I did at the back. Just crack this back bleed nipple off, let it run into a jar till I've got clear or less brown fluid coming through, and do that both sides, and then I know that my brakes fluid is all clean. This looks like it's had at some point different brakes on it. It does say in the history it's had uprated brakes, but these don't look too badly corroded or anything. Everything seems to be moving and free. The pins are even moving, see that? So that's good. So I'm happy that everything's working as it should. So let's crack these nipples off, get this old fluid out, get it back on its wheels. So it is a single line system. We've got one line coming out of the master cylinder here, and it comes all the way up here, and interestingly it goes all the way across the other side of the car, over there where the washer bottle is and the expansion tank, and it disappears off down there, and somewhere down there is a T. In fact, it's a 4-way. One of them goes obviously to the front left, which is that pipe there, and then the other 2 come back and they go back along the front of the car. One goes down the tunnel down here, down behind the engine, which goes to the back, and then the other one comes all the way back to the front, to the right hand side, and that down there somewhere where my hand is now, somewhere down there, through the bulkhead, through the inner wing, sorry, and then onto the front cylinder. So it's got a fair way to travel from here down to the right hand side. It's got to go all the way to the left and come back again, so we'll leave it to drain for a little while, and then when we do the other side, obviously that will all be full of clean fluid anyway. So it's only the from the 4-way back across the front of the car over to the right and down to the right cylinder, and then the left hand side is literally from the 4-way 6-8 inches and it's out through the cylinder. So that's good, we're happy. Well, that was a job that I didn't really want to do, didn't really need to do in my life, because I've got plenty of other things happening. At least I know the back brakes are in good nick. I also know the front brakes are in good nick. I've just driven it up and down the drive, and there's quite a few clonks and bangs and squeaks and rattles and all sorts of other things going on. But we'll see. I'm going to leave it now because I've got lots of other things coming up, and this is going to sit quiet now for a month or two. And then come the springtime, when April gets here, I'm going to take it to the MOT tester, put it on the brake tester up there, put it on the ramp, have a good old poke around, get him to look at it, get him to rock things about, have a look, see what we're dealing with, and hopefully we'll get it on the road and give it a bit of a road test. So if you like what you see and you want to keep up with what we're doing, we've got the Mini, we've now got the Capri, we've got the Land Rovers, we've got the tractors. We've got a few events coming up as well. Click the like button if you like the video, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already done so, because it always helps our algorithm, helps us get out to other people so they can see what we're up to. Happy to share knowledge, happy to share what we do. If you find it interesting, then subscribe. Share to your friends as well. Get us out there, get talking about us, and yeah, we'd like to see you back on the next episode. which I think might be something to do with tractors, but we'll wait to see on that one. Until next time, take care and bye for now.